Welcome and hello from Alex, with a story from r/PettyRevenge, where a divorced dad gets revenge on his ex-wife for trying to sabotage his chance to help out with his son's t-ball team. Coming up next is a story from uncleyuri. Turned the tables on my ex-wife's attempt to make me back out last minute from coaching children's t-ball. About a year out from divorce, ex-wife has been acting petty and childish to say the least, tries to make me look bad any attempt she gets. My young son played t-ball last year and I volunteered to be the coach. Really enjoyed it, but my work responsibilities, schedule changed before this season and I simply could not commit to do it again. I became good friends with the guy running the league and let him know before the signups even started as a heads up. Was disappointed, but not much to do. What I was able to do was volunteer to get to the field super early side before the game started to set them up, chalk line the batters' boxes, foul lines, put out bases, etc. 3 fields total, which he was extremely grateful for. A few weeks before the season was supposed to start, they were unfortunately short a couple coaches and were sending out some desperation emails to all of the parents. My ex knew my situation and apparently thought going onto the website and basically fraudulently volunteering me to coach would be a great way to inconvenience me, make me look bad by having to back out, etc. So she did just that. Buddy running the league called me, very confused. In order to register, you have to make a username, password. The username is just your email. So after a few minutes of looking through the registration, we worked what happened as her email was in the account name. Ultimately, he decided to put his kid on my son's team and be the coach on top of everything else he was doing. He was pissed at my ex himself though, because this stunt could have set them back finding a legit coach if they needed to, possibly delaying the league. Here is where I come up with the petty revenge. He sends out the official email out to all of the parents of the league with the rosters and coaches for all 10 teams. Except for our kid's team, instead of listing himself, I tell him to list my ex, puts her name, contact info, etc. and says to expect further info from each coach individually. She emails him back once she notices to point out the mistake, saying it should have been me instead, but he ignores it. He sends her all of the clearances coaches need to pass, asks for times she can come pick up equipment, the whole 9 yards. After a couple of days, parents of the team apparently start emailing her asking for info on when the season starts and when practice will be and all that. Eventually he does reply back, playing dumb, telling her she is the one who volunteered, as it was her username that registered, and knew it wasn't supposed to be me as he had spoken to me months earlier and knew I wasn't able to do it this year. Put her in an awkward spot, because she either had to admit what she did, or feign some bullshit ignorance and claim a miscommunication which everyone knew was nonsense as we were divorced. After she flat out says she can't coach and she isn't sure what to tell him, he sends out another email to the entire league, which says due to the coach of our kid's team name backing out at the very last minute, I have no choice but to take on coaching the team myself, on top of the rest of the responsibilities. Moving forward, we ask that coaches do not volunteer unless they plan on fulfilling that commitment. He didn't mention her by name, but everyone saw the rosters and knew he was talking about her. She texted me a few weeks later once the season started about how my buddy is in a hole for doing that to her due to a glitch in the registration software, as multiple people have approached and asked her not so nicely what happened, and she knows she is getting looks from people during the games. What a satisfying text it was to receive. That's some next level petty revenge. And honestly, kind of brilliant. Your ex sounds like she was trying to manipulate the situation to make you look bad. Signing you up as coach without your knowledge is a pretty low blow. Good on you for volunteering at the fields early on. Shows you were still committed to helping out even if you couldn't coach. And turning the tables by getting your buddy to list your ex as coach. Pure genius. She dug herself a hole with that fraudulent sign up, and your buddy exploited it perfectly. The best part is the due to the coach backing out email. Subtle but effective. Everyone knew who he was talking about, and it exposed your ex's attempt to cause trouble. The icing on the cake is the text you received. Sounds like she's getting the social consequences she deserves. Sweet justice. Overall, this story is a hilarious example of karma coming back to bite someone. You handled a bad situation creatively and came out on top. Coming up next is a story from expensive support. You didn't realize you married someone so lazy, huh? Last week my husband and I went shopping. We came out of one shop and wanted to go to another, which was the other side of the car park. We walked over and there are no trolleys. What we wanted was packed into 4 heavy boxes and was awkward to carry across a large car park, so I said I'd drive the car over. It's one of those shops where you order at the till and they bring it from the warehouse to the till and you take it to your car. Well, he called me lazy for wanting to move the car. I tried explaining my side, but no, he was adamant I was lazy. I went and moved the car because the fuck was I putting my back out carrying an outdoor table and chairs set to the car. He berated whilst we waited in the queue, calling me lazy, saying he didn't realize he married someone so lazy, etc. I ended up leaving the shop without the table and chairs because he kept pushing for a reaction. Today, we went back to said shops. He said he would go get the table and chairs while I went into another shop. Guess what? No trolleys. He rang me and asked me to drive the car over. Did I fuck? That's lazy. He started to get pissed and realized he didn't have a leg to stand on. He carried each box separately from the shop to the car. 4 trips there and back. Each time he asked me to move the car and I said that it was lazy and I didn't realize I married someone so lazy. Later, Opie actually posted an update on the story. So I'll keep it brief. My mind is a bit jumbled at the moment, so sorry if this doesn't make sense. The divorce papers came Wednesday evening. I gave them to him yesterday morning. It's now Friday morning as I type this. All UK time. My brother and 2 of my brother's friends, both of husband's parents and his brother, were present. Police on standby. Only my brother and his friends knew what was about to happen. My brother's friends were waiting outside in case shit kicked off. My brother was recording the whole thing and thank fuck he did. Husband threw all his toys out the pram, punching holes in the walls, ripped some doors off the hinges, destroying my things, threatening to kill me, threatening to kill himself. He tried to get to the kitchen to get a knife. It wasn't great. His parents were shocked and tried to get him to calm down, but he ended up hurting his mom. By this point, the police were already nearly here and he was arrested. I've had nothing but apology messages from his side of the family saying they had no idea he was like this. I sent them the voice recordings I had from the past few months of him threatening me and explained how he changed since our wedding day. The house we are in is rented, so all the damage will have to be fixed. The lease is up in 6 months, but I'll be requesting to terminate the contract and look into buying my own place far away from him. Wow, that's a wild ride. Sounds like your husband completely overreacted about the car. Wanting to avoid carrying heavy boxes across a parking lot is totally reasonable. Good for you for standing your ground and not letting him bully you into getting them. Honestly, the car situation seems like a minor detail compared to how things escalated. The update about the threats and violence is horrifying. No one deserves to live in fear like that. Good on you for getting the police involved and getting out of that situation. It sounds like you have a supportive network of friends and family around you. That's fantastic. Getting threats documented and ending the lease are smart moves. Starting fresh in a new place far away sounds like a great idea. This whole experience must have been incredibly difficult, but you should be proud of your strength and resilience. Coming up next is a story from KodaKromeCity, and if you like the video so far, don't forget to like the video. It only takes a second and helps me out a lot. Coworker is territorial about her shared desk. I'll just make it worse. Our office is hybrid post-pandemic. And to cut down on costs, we now have a shared desk situation. The only people with permanent desks are the higher-ups or people who come in full-time. My coworker, who shows up about 2 times a week, still treats her desk like her own personal desk even though our whole team is supposed to use it. She's a bit of a grump and never removed her personal items and pictures, even though we were asked to do so. 90% of the time we just leave her desk alone because it's too annoying to deal with her complaints, and our manager basically avoids dealing with her because she's such a headache. But there are times when there just isn't many open desks, so I have to sit at her desk and things get moved, of course. Nothing major, just the usual stuff with a shared desk. But of course she always complains and whines and tries to make us feel bad for using her desk. A few weeks ago it got to be too much. Someone else sat at her desk and adjusted a lot of things, and so she blew up at me. I told her I hadn't sat at a desk, but she just whined about all the times before. I was done. So for the last few weeks, whenever I go past her desk, I make sure to move something or unplug something. It's been pissing her off so much. The best moment came yesterday when she was freaking out because his laptop died mid-meeting. She's not great with technology and was freaking out. Of course she called it, and when they came they simply pointed out that her power cord was loose. I wonder how that happened. Our guy has a way of talking which was perfect for the moment because he basically walked her through a step-by-step process of plugging in the cord while everyone else could hear. She basically looked like a moron for not knowing how to check if it was plugged in. I couldn't stop smiling. This is juicy office drama. On one hand, your coworker definitely sounds territorial. Shared desks are supposed to be, well, shared, and it's inconsiderate of her to leave all her stuff there, especially if she only comes in a couple times a week. but secretly messing with her desk every time you walk by. That's a bit of a low blow. It might feel good in the moment, especially when it basically called her out, but is it really the most mature way to handle things? Maybe it would be better to talk to your manager or someone else brave about how your coworker is hogging the desk. There's gotta be a middle ground here. Maybe a gentle conversation with your coworker reminding her it's a shared space, or a note from your manager about expectations for shared desks. Either way, this secret desk war isn't exactly the best look for anyone. Coming up next is a story from Too Difficult Will Remember. Controlling librarian. Took my students to the library, and one of my students who has anxiety lost a small piece of paper. He asked for a new one and the librarian refused. Student came to me anxious asking for help. We looked in the areas he had been and couldn't find it. At this point my student is close to tears. I wait my turn and ask the librarian if I can use one of the papers no one wanted for anxious student. He said no. After thinking about it, I announced to my class that anyone who could find it would get a reward. Complete chaos. Librarian tried to quiet them down. Didn't work. I didn't help. Librarian announced that he would look later. My students kept running around looking. Chaos continued. After about 10 minutes it was found and we all cheered. I could have easily quieted them down at any time, but fuck that over-controlling noob. Your little rules should not be more important than an excellent student with anxiety being stressed. Wow, that librarian sounds like a real stickler for rules. Definitely frustrating for your student, especially with anxiety in the mix. Needing a new piece of paper shouldn't be a meltdown situation. Turning it into a scavenger hunt with a reward was pretty creative, though. A little chaotic, sure, but it sounds like it calmed your student down and got the paper back fast. Maybe not the most professional approach, but it got the job done with minimal fuss for the students. On the other hand, maybe there was a reason the librarian said no. Limited supplies. A school policy about lost materials? Hard to say without knowing the whole story. Still, a little compassion could have gone a long way. Overall, sounds like you went above and beyond for your student. Good on you for advocating for them in a tough spot. Coming up next is a story from Xbox Gamer 2122. Moving day. This happened yesterday at my new next-door neighbor's townhouse. He bought the house a few weeks ago, and the movers came to unload the truck with his household stuff and move him in. A huge truck pulled into the driveway in front of his garage. When they opened up the back of the truck and looked at what was there, they told him that he needed to pay an additional $400 because of how much stuff he had, and that it would take 2 more hours to unload. He protested, but they threatened to leave and he could take it up with the moving company. They had him over a barrel and took the credit card payment. The movers asked him to open the garage door so they could take everything into the townhouse because the front door off to the side had about a dozen steps. There was a car in the garage and they asked him to remove it. He did. The truck pulled up and in about an hour everything was unloaded and inside. But he had pulled the car in behind the truck, effectively preventing it from driving out. When they asked him to move it, he told him that his wife had the keys and was out shopping. She would be back in a couple hours, since they had told him and her that they needed a couple extra hours to unload. When they pushed back, he told them that he was paying for 2 more hours of their time. To it really didn't matter. She walked out the front door 2 houses later and moved her car till they could drive out and leave. Whoa, that new neighbor sounds like a real character. On one hand, getting hit with a surprise extra charge and longer unload time is frustrating, especially after they've already agreed to a price. $400 stings. It's understandable he'd be upset. But then parking his car behind the truck, that feels a little strategic, like maybe he was testing them, or just plain fed up. It definitely put the movers in a bind. Using the wife has the keys excuse, especially when they clearly knew about the longer unload, is a bit questionable too. Was he justified in squeezing every last minute out of those extra hours he paid for? Maybe not entirely. Still, you gotta give him credit for his creativity. I bet the movers won't be forgetting that unloading job anytime soon. That wraps up r/PettyRevenge. If you enjoyed this content, make sure to visit my Spotify channel, link is in the description, so you can listen to the best Reddit story while being outside, and remember to hit that subscribe button.